We are going to go ahead and get started. This is another episode of the Justice Until Jack podcast, and I have one of my greatest teachers, friends, mentor. What do you want me to call you? You want me to call you a wizard? A shaman? A swami? What do you want to be called?
How about just somebody who's been through it?
Okay, see, that's why. He just says a few words, and it is he puts you right things back into perspective. But this is Francisco Alvarez, and I am welcoming him as my next guest here on the show today. And so, how long have we known each other, Frank?
At least 6 years, maybe 7.
7 years?
Yeah,
I feel like it's been longer.
It does seem
How
like
many lifetimes, though?
I don't know. Probably a couple hundred. We've been through a lot in this one.
We've been through it, huh? But yeah, so we've known each other in the physical world about 6 years.
Yeah.
And today we're going to have a little chat about spirituality. And I couldn't have thought of anyone better to have on the show but you. Being the grand poobah of the spiritual community here in the Central Valley. So thank you for being on.
Oh, I'm glad to be on. I'm glad that you're doing this too.
Thank you.
Grand Poobah, I don't think so.
No.
I think what I am is the person who stirs the pot that kind of tries to dispel all of the new age trendy stuff that's going on that doesn't help.
Yeah, and that's really what our conversation is going to be about today is, taking the woo-woo out of spirituality. Because I think me and Frank are both very level-headed when it comes to spirituality. We don't get what I like to call too far out in the atmosphere. Mm-hmm. We don't get too far out there. And, for me, I feel like if you don't make it accessible, then the message is lost. If you are too up in the clouds about spirituality, especially alternative spirituality, I mean, the message is kind of lost, wouldn't you say?
Well, the way that I look at it is a lot of people seek different paths to spirituality, but the thing is that they forget that they're the only ones who can go there, and they're always looking towards the next in thing. At one time it was Reiki drumming, which is like, it's a drum. Reiki has nothing to do with it. Natives have drummed forever. So, they're always looking for the next thing. There's people out there doing something called quantum healing. Healing is healing. It does work on a quantum level, but it's not special in that way.
Right. It doesn't separate. I mean, no. We talk about energy, and that's a lot what we'll talk about in my show is energy and energy work. And energy is all from the same source. Where do you say the energy comes from? What is your idea of where the energy comes from?
My idea of the energy itself is just the energy that is produced in the universe, because our entire known and unknown universe is still growing, expanding. Stars are being born, stars are dying, planets are coming into existence, species are living and dying. So it goes back to very ancient teachings that you find in China, in the Tao itself. People here know the yin and yang symbol. It's actually, the name of that symbol is Tai Chi. And the Mayans also had the same philosophy of opposites. There is a day, there is a night. There is life, there is death. Yeah. This whole like recycling of energy.
Exactly. But it all comes from the same source.
Same place.
Right. And full disclosure, Frank is a master Usui Reiki practitioner, master. He attuned me, so I am. If for those of you who don't know what Reiki is, you want to explain, give a Reiki
quickie,
Reiki quickie.
There's a lot of stories about Reiki, but the one that through Sacred Light Reiki that we were able to distill with a lot of research and the help of William Rand, who has done a lot of research, is the fact that Reiki is probably as old as Tibetan teachings, and it's a hands-on healing art. And Master Usui was the one that rediscovered it and brought it to Japan. And today in Japan, there are actual Reiki clinics with professionals that you can go to. And it is basically just allowing universal energy, God's energy, whatever you want to call it, quantum energy, to flow through you as you help somebody, help felicitate their healing. You don't heal them, but we all know that when we're with someone, when we're in a time of crisis, it helps us to know that we're not on the journey alone. So it's kind of you get the honor to be the witness to someone's progress in healing or dealing with whatever they have.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's different levels of Reiki and levels of being attuned, and kind of, when I got introduced to it, now I'm speaking of which, I need to be reattuned, Frank. Essentially, when we talk about attuning, we're talking about tapping in, being able to tap into the source of the universal energy or the chi, or, there's yeah, there's different names for it, but it's all the same source, like we established.
It's the same source. There's I always like to tell people when they ask where whatever my healing abilities come from, because I was a healer long before I was a Karuna and Reiki, a Sui Reiki master. I say, well, there's only one energy, and it's love. I tell people evil is only in the hearts of men, humanity. So that's kind of the way I see it. Is I don't tap into anything evil because I have nothing to gain by anyone suffering.
Now let's talk about that. Let's talk about your journey as a healer. Let's go back into time.
Back in time.
Let's talk about your history, because it's
3 millennia ago. No, wait, it's too far.
Keep it on the physical plane today, okay? We'll get into that stuff later.
We'll get into the time.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I was born into a family of curanderos and curanderas. And basically they are the keepers of the sacred medicine, which is herbalism. There is midwifery. There is bone setting. There is therapeutic massage. There are some metaphysical things that go along with it. There's a reading of fortunes. There's saging and cleansing the auras. And then there is what is called the plática, which is where you allow yourself to really listen to someone speaking to you. And most of the time, when you're so open to what somebody is telling you and you feel what they're going through, your compassion allows you to open to that universal mind or energy. And you literally hear for the first time the advice that you're giving them, or the perspective. I like to call it perspective because it's not answers. It's just a perspective.
Right.
So that's, for me, it started as soon as I could stand. My grandmother had me holding a bowl of something that was burning, some herbs or something for some ritual. And, by the time I was 8 or 9, I was doing my own cleansings of my fellow friends who volunteered to be my guinea pigs. And it's just something that I've always done. It's in my family. I have many healers still in my family. My father was a sobandero, which is massage therapy that I did. My mom is a curandera. Her specialty is that she will cook for you, and as you eat her meal, whatever it is that's burdening you, you will unburden yourself at the table. You will let it out.
Absolutely, yes. I've experienced it myself. She's a great cook, by the way. Her tamales,
they are
riquísimos. But what would you say your specialty is? Because I think I know what your specialty is in terms of curandismo. What do you
In terms of curandismo, I have a really good gift for the plática, which is a spiritual counseling.
Yeah.
And it's being able to perceive or see or actually understand the energetic pain somebody is bringing to whatever they're doing. And I've been given the gift of being able to understand what anybody's going through, regardless of their man, woman, how old they are, how young they are, what sex they are. I can relate as a human being to pain. I have compassion. And I'm able to give great perspective from years of study. I've read and studied so many things that, there's a lot of perspective that I have on what's going on in all of our lives.
Yeah. And, Latinos out there, we all know what curanderos, curanderas, medicine men and women, we kind of have an idea of what that is. What are some misconceptions of curandismo that you can maybe clarify for, especially the Latino community out there, people who don't know what curanderos are? Like, what are some...
Well, the first thing that most people think when they think of a curandero, they think that you're a witch. You're a brujo or a bruja.
Right.
And that curandismo has nothing to do with that. It comes from the times that we were just tribal people. And, not one person could hold all of the information of all the medicine needed to keep the tribe healthy, because we didn't have doctors, we didn't have hospitals. So, we did it the natural way. And so you had to have the people also that read the calendars of the stars and foresaw all that. But none of this had to do with what most Hispanics think of as witchcraft, and they think of something that does evil. And
Right.
I know many people that are Wiccan, that are witches, and that's not what their life is about. That's a very small minority. So that's one of them. The other thing is that they can come to a real traditional curandero, somebody who truly practices curandismo, and they can have a love spell done on somebody. No real, authentic curandero with principles would even attempt to do that. We're here to help, to be an in-between the person suffering and to get them to a point where they seek even more help that they may need in a Western way, with a doctor or a psychologist. But we're in a place where we understand where the belief systems come from, So they think that you can do spells. They think that,
You're not walking on water or levitating off the ground.
There's psychic surgery.
Oh,
And,
I've seen that.
And
Primer Impacto or
Yes.
Univision.
I have been around, like I said, my family. I have been around so many curanderos. I have an aunt in Texas who's a great curandera. And I can tell you that psychic surgery is a great magic trick. It's not real.
Yeah.
Those are chicken livers.
Chicken livers, right. They're pulling out of there, pulling out of your stomach, huh?
But a good curandero, through instilling confidence and belief in somebody, giving a limpia, because, this is something that all tribes practice, Here in America, they sage with white sage, We use rosemary and rue to brush people. We use holy water. And it does help to cleanse your energetic field, because it gets dirty.
Yeah. And, my observation and my kind of idea of it is that, these are just tools that we use in, whether it's candles or sage, it's just ritual to remind you of what you're doing.
Yeah.
To put things into perspective. Catholics, they'll use rosary beads, they'll light candles, Buddhists will hit, bells or it's just a ritual to put you kind of in the mode of trying to put your intention out.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that, just kind of going into spirituality is the intention, because the intention is really, for me personally, what I try and live my life by is putting out my intentions to the universe and trying to, make them a reality. What do you think about intention work?
This is what I like about what we're talking about is you mentioned rosary beads.
Mm-hmm.
And those have to be one of the best tools for anybody who's a Catholic to really get inside and see what's bothering them, because it's a meditation process. You're using them to meditate. Your prayers are your chants.
Right.
They're your meditation. But what most people miss, even non-Catholics who don't use rosary beads, is people pray and they jump up right away and they're out the door. They don't sit and wait in silence for an answer. That's the key. That's the key
Right.
to a spiritual practice is whatever it is, you have to take a moment to be still and listen. You'll get the answer. We all have this thing that's a gut instinct, and it works, and so many of us ignore it.
Yes.
I teach Tai Chi Chuan, and after we're done doing the form, I make them stand there in silence, because we're moving energy, we're being meditative, and an answer will come when they least expect it.
Exactly.
So it is about your intention. What you believe, you create. It's not part of a new age movement. You may think that,
Right.
You have all these new age writers right now that are talking about affirmations and intention and all this. The secret, yes. But this is as old as Greek philosophy. It's ancient knowledge that's just being repeated, but written in a language that can be understood today.
Right.
But it's not a secret. It is what you think you create. If you think that, you'll never have someone in your life, well, then you won't, because you'll do everything subconsciously to stop it.
Exactly. To destroy it, to avert it.
Yes.
Right?
You will stop whatever it is, but if you think positively, things positively happen. Now, what I always tell people, when you want something and you seem to not be able to get it, most people want to blame God. That's where they go. Blame God. Right. I always say, you know what? It's the universe telling you, wait a moment, I'm preparing you because there's still some key tools that you don't have before you get there. If you get there without the proper tools, you'll mess it up. It won't work.
Right.
So you're not ever being denied.
Exactly. I mean, the only constraints that you put on your growth are your own constraints.
Yes.
Because in reality, society and our upbringing, those aren't real constraints. Unless you allow them to be constraints, then they become obstacles in your life.
Yeah. And many people need to get away from whatever situation or people that have made a non-productive atmosphere for them. And they need to be around different-minded people. They need to go through therapy. They need to read. They need to educate themselves to see how they can break cycles.
Yeah.
It's all about cycles. It's not about being cursed or being doomed.
You're not gonna quitar el demonio from me. You're not going to exorcise me of my bad karma.
I will tell you the truth. In my 50 plus years of being a curandero, from a little child on up, I have never seen a true example of possession.
Yeah.
So that's got to tell you something.
But people believe that, that it exists.
And if you believe it, then you create it.
Yeah.
And then my job there would not be to exorcise the demon, but to help you change your belief. Because once you change your belief, you're free.
Right. And I think, and this is no knock to curandismo or anything, but I do feel like people do go to curanderos to solve their problems.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes, they feel like if they're given a soap or they're given this or they do this or they pay that their problems will go away. And just like you said, it's not, the problem lies within the person.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't necessarily, it's something they created, and only they can, only they can really,
and
get rid of it.
Many times they create it by sticking to a cycle that's abusive, whether it's with family. You find that in everybody, not just Hispanics, but, dysfunctional families, dysfunctional relationships. If they were once told, well, be nice, or, your aunt's that way, you just have to understand. And it puts them into a cycle where they become victimized. And the thing is, I try to help people learn how to empower themselves, to break free and not feel guilty. The biggest thing is they feel guilty. But they expect me to fix their problems, but nobody can fix your problems but you.
Yeah, definitely. And, curandismo is only a part of what you do.
It's a small part.
Yeah, it's a small part. As you mentioned before, you also do Tai Chi.
I've been teaching Tai Chi for over 20 years. And that is a practice that I took up myself for my own health, and literally turned it around in 6 months. And I find the thing about Tai Chi is most people, they see it and they think it's just moving slow for old people, but it's actually a martial art. But the thing about Tai Chi is that it requires to work from the inside out. And so you're really training your mind and training your body. And it's not something that you do in the studio. It's something that goes with you out in life. It starts to transform your life. I have tons of students whose life itself transforms because of the things Tai Chi requires. It requires you to be present, requires you to be balanced. It requires you to put thought into your next movement. I mean, how many of us could benefit from doing that every day?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Tai Chi, from my understanding, it kind of embodies the mind, body, and spirit.
Yes.
It works on all areas all at once because you are being physical, because it's considered a martial art.
Yes.
Right? So you are being physical, but you are also doing energy work, you're meditating, you're learning discipline, so it does cover a lot of areas, kind of the, all encompassing.
It is. Tai Chi is my passion.
Yeah.
That is what I live for. I love teaching it. Look, I've been doing it for over 21 years and I still have not found the end. I still haven't gotten bored. I'm still discovering new things. I've always called it a moving meditation.
I like
Harvard Medical called it a moving medication.
Wow.
So there's a big stamp of approval.
Yeah.
Harvard talks about what health benefits you get from doing stuff like that.
Yeah.
But you can get that from running. You can get that from swimming. If you use it as not something that you're doing, get it over with and you're done, but you actually use a process. I mean, I know you go to the gym. If you have a process like you're stretching before, you're doing your workout, you're stretching after, that is a practice.
Yeah.
Not just in and out.
Right. Yeah. So, we kind of talk about, spirituality and, for me being raised Catholic, being raised in a traditional religious upbringing, and I don't know, were you raised Catholic as well?
They tried to raise me Catholic until I was about 9 years old, and then you're pretty much able to make your decision.
They realized you were a heathen.
I don't know if it's still this way, but in the Catholic Church, by the time you were 8 or 9, they thought you were of reason, and you could then, I don't know, declare to the church or whatever they call it. See how long it's been.
Yeah, for me, I felt like I was declared at the church the moment I was born, and for me, I did go through the whole process. I did, have my baptism and my first communion, and then my confirmation. I was in catechism, so I was raised in the church, and even though I'm not a practicing Catholic, I don't identify with the Catholic religion. I definitely learned a lot from it. I got a lot from being raised Catholic, and for that I will never not have respect for it, because I did learn. I guess the greatest lesson I learned from being Catholic is having morals, because you are constantly reminded of your morality in I guess in religion in general. It's about having high morals and what your morality compass lies. So I mean, if anything, that's probably the greatest lesson that I learned from being Catholic. However, I also learned the infamous Catholic guilt. You're guilty for everything. You're guilty for everything you do and for everything that everybody else does. And before I found my own spirituality, I found myself being very judgmental. I found myself being very guilty of the life that I was living. I always felt that, especially when there's a reminder, like something like a death in the family, where you have to go, and there's certain traditions that you do in the Catholic Church in regards to a funeral. So you're kind of, for me, it was my grandmother's death that kind of really got me into being reintroduced to the Catholic religion and having to go through that whole process. But I would say that in finding that there is, another way to reach your higher self, to reach the higher self, I was able to leave it behind. But it was very much ingrained in me, and at times I still find myself thinking, should I be, blessing myself, or every time and this is gonna blow your mind, but every time that I go by a church, subconsciously, and without even thinking about it, I make the sign of the cross. Every time I go by a church, even though, and for now in retrospect that I look at it, it's more out of respect for my grandmother, because she's the one who was really involved in the church, and she's the one who really introduced me, I guess, to my first introduction into spirituality. What was your first introduction into spurituality?
Well, my first introduction to spirituality was limpias, doing cleansings, curando people of susto. Susto is when you have something kind of traumatic, maybe you were a car accident, or, I don't know, somebody jumped out and scared you, and then you just don't feel right. You feel kind of out of phase, I guess they call it. And so those are the things that I witnessed about spirituality. And of course, my grandmother, who was my greatest teacher, she was always talking to me about spiritual things, but yet my grandmother went to church every Sunday.
Yeah.
And my mother was sent to Catholic school for a while. And so she was a little bit more adamant that I follow the steps you did, which I never did. I got baptized, but, I couldn't say anything. I was a kid. I was a little baby.
Right.
But I didn't follow anything else. My understanding of spirituality came as I was basically going everywhere with either my mother or my aunts or my grandmother, and I was seeing all these rituals that were happening and all these things that we did that were outside of the church. And when I asked my grandmother about these things, and she told me about my great-grandmother. And my great-grandmother, grew up, she had a thatch hut, dirt floor. And outside, she had a huge altar. People would come there and get their babies blessed before they were baptized. Mm-hmm. People would come there on Ash Wednesday to get the ashes on their forehead. She wielded great spiritual power. And so there was a little tension between the Catholic Church and her.
Yeah, and that's crazy, because even though Catholics, as religious and dedicated to the church that they do seek alternative means of spirituality or healing by going to curanderos and curanderas, which is, it's such a dichotomy that, there's that other side. It's kind of, for me, I feel like it goes hand in hand.
Well, to me, a lot of that is because our culture was so infused when the conquest happened with this religion. And being very smart people who had created an astronomical calendar that is perfect to this day, to the second, we started to hide everything within their rituals. We saw what they were doing and understood them as the rituals we already had. And so when you're talking about, the Catholic Church and all these things, part of that also has to do with the fact that it's also infused in the culture. So it isn't just if you went to church, it's the fact that it's a cultural thing now.
Yeah.
It kind of dominated.
It very much is a cultural thing. And even though I was raised very strictly Catholic, I did know about, the spirituality or the more healing parts of the culture. It wasn't just, the padre has the final word. This, and in the neighborhood I grew up in, the church was the center of the community. I don't think it's in bigger cities, or I don't know if they still do it, but in my neighborhood, the nuns and the priests, they would come to your house, like they'd come visit you, and have a seat with you, ask how things are doing, ask why you wasn't in church the other day,
Yes.
you know? And so, it was very much ingrained, but I still understood the spiritual side and the healing. And, my grandma, she had all her different cremas and her, things that she, teas that she would make and stuff. So even though she was a dedicated Catholic, she still was very much, I guess we would call it the native side of our culture.
Yeah.
The more traditional, because essentially Mexican people are natives, and
Yeah, we're indigenous.
yeah, we're indigenous people.
We're no different from Native Americans here. We lived in tribes. We had our own ceremonies. We still have our own ceremonies. We had our own medicinal things that we did. It's the same exact thing. It's no different.
Yeah, and so, it's just, specifically for us, I guess it's, it's more cultural than anything. But for me, I feel like the turning point for me to, say, and for me, I felt really taboo in not identifying as a Catholic anymore, because it just immediately comes that you're going to be stricken down, or you're going, something bad's going to happen to you. It's like, it's kind of like you're denouncing God. That's how I kind of took it, that I was denouncing God by not identifying or not going to church anymore. It was a really hard thing for me. I went to church every Sunday and sometimes on Saturday, because back at my church, Saturday, it was a shorter, it was shorter. It was only 45 minutes instead of an hour. So sometimes I would go with my grandma, because she's like, I don't want to get up. I don't want to be there and see all these people or whatever. And plus on Sundays, you had to get dressed up. Saturdays was like casual. You can go like more casual on a Saturday. And it was shorter. So sometimes I go Saturday or Sunday, and then the whole thing is like, you couldn't, if you hadn't confessed in 2 weeks, you couldn't go up and receive the bread. So like, it was very much like, oh, I've been sinning. I've been, I can't go up there and receive the bread because I haven't gone and confessed my sins. And to be honest with you, I'm going to, I guess your confessions are supposed to be, sacred and private, but honestly, all of my confessions was the same thing every time I went. I honestly felt like it was a routine. I would go in there, bless me, Father, for I have sinned. And then he would just be like, okay, my child, tell me your sins. And then it would be the same list. I could have written it down. Like, I yelled at my mom. I talked back to my grandma. It was the same thing every 2 weeks. And it had to be every 2 weeks, or else I couldn't go up there. So if you went to confession once, that would last you 2 times going up to the bread. It would. It was like that. It was like
special.
Exactly. So it was very much, the ritual, the idea of being raised Catholic was very much ingrained in me. So like I was saying, being, not going to church and not participating, and then. I can even remember when, people would ask me, what religion are you? And I would, I remember the first time saying, well, I was raised Catholic, but I don't, I'm not a practicing Catholic. Then of course their next question is, well, what are you? What are you? And I'd be like, well, I'm, and then it's kind of like, it's kind of the cop out answer. Well, I'm more spiritual than religious. You start with that. You start with, well, I'm more spiritual. What do you mean by that? Well, I don't believe in the religious judgments and restrictions that the Catholic religion has. I believe, because I believe honestly, and this is just going back to that little person, who was scared of the Father. And I was scared to go up to the crucifix because it was scary. It was a life-size one.
Oh my God.
And you could see the thorns and everything. It was very detailed. But I honestly feel that I'm going to go to heaven. I feel like whatever, if there's a heaven, I'm going to go in it. I don't believe that, being gay, my sins of the past are forgiven. Whatever judgments that the Catholic religion is going to place on me, I still feel like I'm going to go to the next. I'm going to go on.
Yes,
And
you
then,
will.
the spiritual side of me is going to be like, well, this is just my physical body.
Yeah.
My spirit is going to continue to live on and on and on. That's the higher elevated self of my spirituality. But, just going back to the Catholic side of me, I'm good in my book.
Yeah.
I'm good in my book. I'm a good person, and I'm going to go on to whatever that next place is. And that's how I honestly feel when it comes down to it.
When it comes to the things that you're talking about, the things that I have problem with is religions when they use it to intimidate their parishioners, and they use it to spread hate.
Yeah.
And I believe that you even spread hate when I was in Oceanside a couple of weeks ago, and I was walking into Jersey Mike's. Plug for Jersey Mike's.
No sponsorship here.
You may get one.
Yeah.
And somebody handed me a little leaflet, and I opened it up, and the first thing it said, it had a cross on the front and everything, and I opened it up, thought I was going to, get a nice little, something nice, And the first thing it says is, you are a sinner and only Jesus Christ can save you. And to me, that's intimidation, and that's hate, because I don't believe that there is a God like that hates. Yeah. And so I can see those were my difficulties, like yours, is when I quit going, is because every time I went, all I heard was about how I was sinning. I was 8 years old, how I was doomed.
Yeah.
And I just knew it wasn't my truth. That wasn't me. And as you well know, in 2015, I had a heart attack, and I died for a moment. And I spoke with God. And I can tell you that I have not lived the most pious life in the world. And so if people ask, how do I know I'm going to get in there? As long as you're doing your best. Because when I spoke to God, God actually said, you can come home. I said, no, I got to go back. Ask me 3 times. You can come home. You've done enough. So personally myself, I'm looking like, dang, God is awesome, because he forgave a lot.
Yeah.
And said I could come home.
It's funny that you say that, because there was a recent, I don't know if you've been following the candidates running for president, but there is a candidate who is openly gay. He's a mayor, Minnesota. I don't know what state he's in.
Minnesota,
his name's Pete Buttigieg. And I guess he's got some beef with Mike Pence, who's the vice president, and he goes because Mike Pence he came up with some laws and some policies and such that are discriminatory against gay people. And so they've kind of been beefing a little bit in the media, back and forth with each other. And one of the things that Pete Buttigieg has, because he identifies himself as a Christian, and he's married, he has a husband, and but he's openly gay, and he's a Christian. And he made a statement that somebody asked him a question about Mike Pence, and his response to me was just such a perfect rebuttal to like any of the hate or judgment that was coming from Mike Pence or his supporters. And he said your issue is not with me. He says, take that up with my creator. And I just thought, like, he just simply put
That's
it like
beautiful.
It's awesome. Yeah, because he is in one sentence saying, this is who I am, this is how I was made, this is how I was born. So your problem is not with me. Your problem is with my creator.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I've always told people, like you, people ask me what my religion was.
Yeah.
And of course, I just said it's Curandismo. And nobody really knows what that is unless they're older Hispanic or they, grew up and really listened to their parents or grandparents or visited one. So usually people don't ask me too much more after that.
Yeah.
And if they do, then I talk to them about spirituality. But, I always tell people, because they will be, well, I'm a Christian. Is it okay for you to work on me?
Right.
I have Jehovah's Witnesses come to me. So there is something where people are seeking something that they can't find.
Right. in their religion.
Well, yeah. And the thing that what I tell people, I say, I see two different things. There's religion, which is this thing that you go to and somebody's telling you what they're interpreting or what was interpreted. And then there's your spirituality, when you go into whatever you believe in and you actually delve into it to see what feels true to you. And I always say, whatever anybody's belief system is, as long as it doesn't hurt them or hurt others, then it's fine. But when you use any belief system, I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's a religious one, if it's a race one, if it's an economic one, whatever the belief system you have is hurting other people or hurting yourself, then it's not good. It's not healthy. That's the way I see it.
Yeah. And I mean, for me, in finding my spirituality, I did study other religions. I looked into them. And honestly, in the major ones, like Buddhism and Judaism, is you pick them all apart. You pick, if you really delve into the readings, they all say the same thing. They all tell you essentially to be a good person, to treat others as you want to be treated.
Yes.
The message is the same. Live a good life. Be a good person.
Look out for each other.
Yeah. So for me, in identifying what my spirituality is I took this and took some of that and, went to this, read this book, and they all told me that, just live the best life that you can, treat others as you want to be treated, just be a good person. That's the universal message that I found in these writings, is that, it's a very simple concept, but it's clouded a lot in...
It's clouded by huge books of writing that were written by people who were writing after the fact and were human beings and had their own agendas and were trying to push their own whatever they were trying to push forward. So yeah, it gets clouded, but the message, the pure message itself, is exactly what you said. We got to love each other and we help each other out. We look out for each other.
Yeah. And, you can't go wrong with that.
No.
But you don't need to identify with a religion or a certain group of people in order to understand that.
Wouldn't it be nice if we just all identified as human beings? One race, one planet.
Yeah. Yeah.
My grandmother, the reason I say curandismo is my grandmother, she always said, these gifts come from God. And when you're a curandero, you're of service. You're there to help people. You're helping the community. You're there for your community. And she always said at the end, whenever we finished doing something, she always said, and we thank God that we did this. Yeah. So, I mean, that has got to be the simplest, just like you said, way to live and to just be in the world. And I don't think you need to convert people to anything if they are living a happy life and they are looking out for each other and seeing each other. Who says that you need to convert them to your thinking, How many people do you know that went from Christianity to Buddhism? Yeah. Because that worked for them.
Exactly.
They're not going to go to hell.
Right. And part of evolving as a person is things that didn't work, that worked for you before, they no longer serve their purpose. If you're looking for more answers and your religion is not giving you those answers, you want to find, you want clarity, you want more answers, you want to look beyond, what your religion might be.
Yeah, and what you're being presented too. You have to study. If you really want, say Buddhism, say if that was your religion and you're just quite not getting there, well then you need to study. You need to get into classes. You need to really delve into it and really understand it. It's just same thing for Christianity, Judaism. Just having somebody give you a Cliff's Notes version of it with their interpretation will never work. You have to search your own soul, because that's the only place you find your own faith.
Yeah.
It's nowhere else.
Yeah, and there's some people who are fine with with the spirituality that they were given or that they were born with, that they were told that they are. They never seek anything beyond that.
And they're good people.
They're good people. They're fine with it. but you're kind of, this is where you're going to be about it. You're going to, stay at this level, and that's your comfort zone with your spirituality. I feel like a lot of people don't want to deal with their spirituality. They're just like, I was raised this is what I am. And I'm just like, I don't want to know about anything else. I don't want to see anything else.
I don't want to open a can of worms.
Right. Because it does force you to, when you look beyond, or you're trying to find more answers, it does open a can of worms. It forces you to deal with a lot of your beliefs. And that can be scary, because things that you once believed may not be so.
But also some things that you believe may become stronger.
Yeah, exactly.
Your dedication to your fellow man may become a lot stronger, So, it's scary. Change is scary. Humans don't like change, as we're talking about people doing bad things, there's as many people who have no religion or spirituality who do horrible things, and there's many people that have neither the spirituality or religion who do wonderful things. Yeah. So it really is down to that core thing. Are you a decent human being?
Yeah.
Are you good? Your moral compass is working.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Keep going with it. Yeah. And that's the thing, it's not my place to tell you what your journey is, what your spiritual journey is. I always like to, talk about namaste and being, honoring, I see the light in you that's within me. It's the same. And it doesn't matter in what form you're finding your light or you're presenting your light. If I see it, I honor it,
Yeah. That's, and you also learn to honor whatever their struggle is. I had read a while back that if you don't heal what hurts you, you're going to bleed all over everybody. And that's when I see people acting out, and even towards me or towards my friends, or just in general in the media, I go, I really see their pain. I don't have to agree with what they're doing. I don't have to think it's okay. But I know why it's happening, and I kind of have a compassion for them because they don't know why it's happening.
Yeah.
Or they don't want, or they can't look at it. I don't say people don't want to look at pain. It's hard to look at it.
It is.
Yeah. It's not an easy thing to do. It's a wound.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So.
I like to call it a dirty diaper.
A dirty diaper.
Like nobody wants to deal with a dirty diaper. Like, you're just like, I just want to just keep it on. I don't see it. And not until you open it, then you realize, oh, this is a mess.
Or you could open it and realize that the stink wasn't as big as the mess.
Bad. Exactly. Yeah.
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 I have an analogy where I say, there's stuff that can happen to you, and you put it in a closet and you close the door. And what happens is your mind makes it into this huge monster, so you'll never go in there because, you told your mind, I don't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
So it's going to build something so you stay away. One day you may open that door and you find out that that's just a little fluffy bunny that needs a hug. And it wasn't the monster that your mind helped you create to keep away from it.
Right. And, and that's kind of, the elevated level of my spirituality is the mind. And very much really understanding how the mind, creates, the mind destroys. I feel like it's a huge component in spirituality is the mind. Now,
it's a great computer with a rotten processor.
Yes, and sometimes a rotten operator. Huh?
There you
the person
go. Yeah.
operating the computer.
What was that old saying back when computers came out? Oh, garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's the operator.
Exactly, it's the operator. Now, you're going to soon get your ministerial.
Yes, I am.
What do you call it? Ministerial
credentials.
Yes.
6 years.
Yeah.
Of,
awesome.
classes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
A lot of hard work.
A lot of hard work and a lot of digging into that dirty diaper.
Yeah.
Because that's what it's about.
Because the teachings that you're using for your ministerial, what is it? Certification or ministerial?
Certification, yes.
Is called Science of the Mind.
Science of the Mind, which is a philosophy that, as we had talked before, the power of now, the secret. It was written back in the 20s, and it was basically taking the ancient Greek philosophy and bringing it forward to their time period into their language, which is very hard to understand in our language now because they spoke a lot more eloquently and used a lot more, highfalutin words.
Right.
But basically, the premise that Dr. Ernest Holmes had was the fact that he was searching for spirituality from the time he was 18 years old. And he spoke to every religious leader he could. And he read just anything he could get his hands on. And he developed this saying, what I did was I wanted to experiment. And so his experimentation was that if he believes something and if God always provides, then if he can truly believe that he's worthy of receiving, then it should manifest. So his philosophy is basically talking to you about how you go by the steps of understanding that the universe is abundant, that God never says no, always says yes. So be careful what you think.
Yeah.
And then,
right.
Basically using affirmations, and it's a philosophy, not a religion, because it was created so whatever your belief system was, you could strengthen it.
You can apply it.
Because all belief systems go to one deity or one entity or one source.
Yeah.
They don't have, it goes to, there's always a one. There's always one boss.
Always a one.
Yeah. Even if you've got mini bosses, there's always one boss.
In the Marvel universe,
universe.
Getting nerdy here, they call it the one above all.
Yeah, the one above all. There you go.
The one above all. That pretty much sums it up.
Yeah, that's basically it. So it's teaching you, because most religions separated you from God by putting someone between you and God. Us as Catholics, they put the priest. After the priest, they put the bishop. And after the bishop, they put the cardinal. And after the cardinal, they put the pope.
Right.
And we were told that you could develop a relationship with God. Oh, wait, we forgot Jesus was in there too.
Yeah, I forgot Jesus. Yeah,
Sorry about that, Jesus.
Yeah, we got the three sides. We got the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
But they're telling you to develop this personal relationship, but you can't have it unless you're going to confession.
Right.
So there's a lot of things where you are the perpetual student, thinking that the person in front of you who's just a mere mortal like you knows more, is better than you. This eliminates that to where you unify yourself with God. And so now, whatever it is you do, however you think, whatever you create, it's your responsibility. Right. You can't blame it on anybody else. Right. And as human beings, we'd rather say it's somebody else's fault.
Oh, hell yeah. Oh, hell yeah. We don't like to take no responsibility because, it would be, we like to pass the buck.
Yeah, of course.
Like to pass the buck. It's my mom's fault. Mm-hmm. It was my dad. I was raised like this, It
was the church.
It was the church. It's like.
It was the nuns. It was the youth group. It was a soccer coach. It was my classmates.
Yeah. We always, it's just easier to place the blame on somebody else because then we don't have to deal with it. Mm-hmm. We're not forced to face it.
But if we don't deal with it, it festers. And then it comes back and gets you.
Yep. It will come back around and get you. Let me tell you, if you don't deal with it, it will rear its ugly head when you least expect it.
And the sad thing is and there are people who things do happen to them that are tragic. They live in an abusive environment. They have an incident that happens. It's ugly. They get betrayed and bamboozled. I hope your young and people know what bamboozled is. You can Google it.
I know a few people who still use that term.
So, but the thing is that what happens, and you see a lot, is they mask it with drugs or alcohol or unhealthy behaviors, overeating, acting out sexually, doing dangerous things, taking dangerous jobs. Some people do it because that's what they do, but there's a lot of people put themselves in danger one way or another when something happens. If you don't look at stuff, no matter how bad it is, it can eventually come back and get to you. Now, there's some people who can bury it so deep, they don't even know it's there, even though other people see the traits. but they can live their whole life and never know it's there.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know,
and just until something triggers it.
yeah.
And
And
then
you don't want to be triggered in your 70s
no,
to try to deal with something that happened in your 20s.
exactly.
That's horrible.
And that's the thing about, you have to look at it as a success when you're dealing with your pain, especially just the mere fact that you're admitting to it, that you're recognizing it.
Mm-hmm.
That's a win in itself, because once you recognize it, then you can start the healing process. It begins there by recognizing it. And, just as much as you can, the thing about, and, just kind of going back to the mind, the thing about as much as you can be self-destructive,
Mm-hmm.
the energy and the thoughts that you put into being self-destructive, you can put those same thoughts and energy into healing.
Yes.
That's the part that is so powerful, is that as much as you undid everything, you can put it all back together. It lies within you to do that.
And what stops people from doing that, from using the exact same power, there is, it's so true what you say. There is no more energy in the universe. It was all created.
Mm-hmm.
There is no more, there is no less. And it's the same. It's the exact same one, like you said.
Yeah.
The thing that keeps people from using it to put things back together is they don't think they deserve it.
Right.
It goes back to the core of whatever happened, or whatever somebody told them, or whoever somebody told them they were, and they bought into it.
Yeah.
So even if they say they don't buy into it, in their subconscious, where the work needs to get done, they still believe it. So as they get close to that prize, they'll do something to mess it up.
Exactly.
Have you ever known somebody who their car always breaks down when they're going to go get the job they wanted?
Yeah. There's a reason for that.
Yeah, they created it. They created it years in advance or months in advance by not taking care of maintenance.
Right. I don't deserve this job. I don't, I don't have the ability to do this.
Or I don't have the money to change the oil. Well, that's why you have friends and you say, hey, can anybody help me change the oil? And you save money that way,
Right.
So there's a lot of things. That's why I want people to learn how to be empowered so they understand. And then I want people to cut themselves some slack.
Yeah.
If you mess up, oh, well, okay.
Right.
I'm not going to judge you for that.
Right.
I'm not going to blame you for it. It's okay.
Yeah. I always, I tell people this when they're, beating themselves up or doing this. You know what? No one's going to come out of that door over there and spank you. It's like no one's going to come out and, regañarte. They're not going to come out and scold you for, doing something for yourself or believing that you deserve this. Nobody's there's not a police on patrol. That patrol, that exists in your mind. It's not real.
And people think that true friends will think less of you, but no, they won't. Mm-hmm. That's a huge trap too. I'm glad you brought it up. It's a huge trap, thinking that way, because you're really just letting yourself down. Mm-hmm. When people believe that they don't deserve something good, it scares them to triumph.
Mm-hmm.
Because now they don't have any excuses. Now they have to be triumphant in their life. But how good would it be to be triumphant in your life? And Batman, why do we fall down, Master Wayne? So that we can learn to get up.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Right.
You don't stay on the ground.
Nope.
I used to tell my friends, I go, if you fall down, I'm going to laugh. Then I'm going to pick you up and kick you in the butt until you keep going.
Yeah.
Because I love you that much. But the other thing is also, as you get more spiritually aware, is if you have someone that you care about and they want to burn, they want to really do things that are not good for them. Yeah, you have to love them enough. You have to love them enough to let them burn.
To let them burn.
Yeah, because you can't reach into a fire without getting burned.
Right.
You can't rescue someone who doesn't want to be rescued.
Right.
We'll get a little Bible-y here.
Yeah.
In the Bible, it says that you have to work out your own salvation. And that's not even in a religious way. Say you're having a nervous breakdown. You got to pick up the phone and make the appointment. You're the one with the insurance.
Exactly.
I can't make it for you.
Yeah.
Unless we spend all that time and you give me medical power of attorney and all that kind of stuff. But, so it's it truly is very hard when you care about somebody, but you have to say, if I stop them right now, what could they do next that could be worse? You know, if I see somebody that's just not going to work, drinking, and they're going to lose their job, they're going to lose their apartment, I have to have enough compassion to let them burn, because what if I stop them?
Yeah.
What if I make them stop drinking? I'm there 24/7, and then the next thing I hear is they killed themselves.
Right.
You know, I've got to understand that this has to work out in God's way, not mine.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Like we talked about before is, I can only be a support system for you. I cannot be in the driver's seat.
No.
Because it's not my car.
No, not your car.
I don't have the keys to it. I don't got the insurance. I don't know its little ticks and little nuances. So I cannot drive your car. I cannot be in the driver's seat for you. I can only be, on the sidelines, flashing the path for you, arrest, stop, help you change a tire, but I cannot be there. No. It cannot be driving your car, because that is your journey. That's your life.
And that makes you more uncomfortable.
Yeah.
If you have a new car, or you just have a car and this is the first time you let someone drive it, because you don't want to deal with the traffic, or you're still uncomfortable.
You're still uncomfortable. You're thinking, this bitch is going to fuck my shit up.
Yeah. Or you're just uncomfortable because you've never let anyone drive your car. So imagine when you're going through something and you really are going to tell somebody else to do the emotional work for you.
Right.
And as soon as you tell somebody else to rescue you, deep down inside, you start to feel shame, and you start to feel like you're no good. So you perpetuate your own cycle.
Yeah. And, energetically, kind of going back to that, when you take that upon yourself for someone, that is energetically draining. That is energetically, you are taking upon what if inside their car they have a stink, they got a stain, that is going to transfer, that energetically, spiritually is going to, have an effect on you.
Yes. So,
you have to, that's one of the things I learned in my spirituality, because I'm a people pleaser. I'm a self-confessed people pleaser. And so, I want people to feel good. I want them to be happy. And so oftentimes I was taking on a lot of their anxieties, or I felt anxiety after talking with them or speaking with them or trying to boost them up. And the greatest lesson I learned from being more spiritually in tune was the grounding, was being grounded. And that's one thing that I learned from you is, putting the tree roots down, being grounded in who you are and grounding your energy and your spirit, so that it cannot be, pulled this way and pulled that way and taken here and taken there, is to really understanding the grounding process.
Yeah, a tree doesn't come to you to give you shade. Right. You go to the tree. Right. Right. But, what you're talking about is being a people pleaser, and also, that's also being a care provider. Yeah. I thought that was my mission as a curandero. I thought that's what I needed to do. I need to rescue people. I need to do all these things. And I too found out the hard way that wasn't what I was supposed to do. So that's why I really keyed on to the fact that I'm there to provide perspective and to empower you to be able to move through it. Because what happens, if anybody out there who does any kind of healing work or any counseling work, if you delve in too much into what's going on other than giving a perspective or doing your healing work and letting it go, is you're not going to be mindful of the things that you need to do to be okay. And before you know it, you personally will be in trouble. Yeah. Because I can tell you, I'm going to go ahead and put the number out there, 99.9% of healers are people who are still healing. That is a good healer knows how to help you because they have healed and they are healing and they understand the path, and not because of some burning bush or some miracle water. It's because they've been through it.
Exactly. And, I learned to not, part of my spiritual evolution was that my healing and my my knowledge is up to me. I don't put my life in somebody else's hands.
Never.
So as as somebody who does mentoring and somebody who does, I guess you could call it counseling, or just talking, counseling people, is that is defining that line and empowering. It's not about having all the answers. I don't have all the answers, right?
No one does.
You don't have all the answers.
I don't.
As
the universe
elevated
does.
as
God
you are,
does.
right? So we don't. The answers don't lie within another person.
No, they lie inside.
Exactly.
Right in here.
So that was one of the greatest lessons that I learned, is that, and it's a very empowering thing to know that you're responsible for you, you're responsible for your development, and you're only going to go as far in your development as you put in.
Yeah.
You have people along the way to support you and to give you advice, but ultimately all the choices that you make in life are your responsibility. They're up to you. And for me, that's where I felt like I evolved spiritually. I was no longer the Catholic altar boy Jack, whose knowledge of whose religion told him this, and that's all that he needed. I felt like I needed something more, and that was probably the greatest lesson that I learned, was that I am responsible for me. If
You're
I want
truly
something to be
responsible for
done,
yourself.
And
there are times when people take responsibility for us when we're very young or when we're very old. But even at those times, as we start to become more self-aware, we do become responsible for ourselves, because it is what we think of ourselves and how we react to whatever stimulus is out there. So even at that point, once we're no longer, a child to the point where we can't feed ourselves, we can't do these things, we have come into complete responsibility, even though your parents are on the hook till you're 18 in most states,
Yeah.
But
and beyond.
Yeah, so that's something that is so true, is everybody honestly, truly is responsible for themselves. That period, we all come into this world alone, and we go out of this world alone.
Yeah, absolutely.
But of course, in my thinking, I'm never alone, because I'm always one with God. So
exactly,
that's what keeps me going some days.
Yeah,
because everybody has rough things going on in their life. Just because you're a healer doesn't mean you don't have to deal with deaths or family situations, or a broken water heater, or a busted car, or you deal with things, but you learn a perspective. You learn, how much energy am I putting into this situation? How much responsibility am I for the continuing chaos?
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's funny that you mentioned that. Somebody had posted a meme where it showed like these two characters, and one of them was like on the floor, and it says, and has an arrow in her back. She's on the floor, and it says, and then it shows another person running to them like, "Oh my God, are you okay?" And underneath the person who said, "Oh my God, are you okay?" it says healer, and they have like 20 arrows in their back.
True. That's true.
So, going back to what you said, it's like, the healers are typically, healing themselves.
Yes.
And,
yes. When you answer the call to be a healer, something has transpired in your life that has given you great compassion and love of life. And at first you have to learn not to burn with other people while they're suffering. You have to learn compassion at a distance. I recommend, the Dalai Lama has a book called Compassion at a Distance. I recommend that book. I had a friend, she's passed away now, Corrine, but she used to say that was our family Bible. And so, it's true. You learn to have compassion, and you learn not to judge, and you learn to help people help themselves because you've done it. But if you're not doing the work, if you haven't looked at your wounds and you're not constantly working at them, and you think you've elevated yourself to this place of, I'm a healer and I'm this and I'm that, you're going to do a disservice to everybody who comes around you.
Right.
Because you're working out of ego, and you're putting yourself above them.
Right.
You're not seeing them as a fellow human being. And that is the worst disservice you could do to somebody.
Yeah.
And if you're doing that, you should just stop, because you will hurt people that way. When people come to me, they always thank me. They're always thanking me, and I always take my thank you here through my heart, and I send it up to God.
Exactly.
Because it isn't me. But I always tell people when I talk to them, and I see them getting a little bit of idol worship or I always say, please never, ever, ever put me on a pedestal. I don't want to fall, and I will fall, and I will get hurt. Understand that my compassion for you is the same compassion I'm trying to have for myself. And that I learn as much from you when we talk as you learn from me.
Right. Yeah. And that's the thing is, that's happened to me in the past too. They're like, oh my God, thank you. Like, what can I do? And what I always tell them is that the best thing that you can do is pay it forward. The best thing that you can do is take what you've learned from me, or how you feel I've impacted you. Because like you said, I'm going to take the gratitude that you gave to me, and I'm going to send that gratitude back out there, because it's a continuous cycle. I can't keep the gratitude for myself, because I'm no guru. I'm no God. I'm just sending it back where it came from. But what you can do is you can continue the teachings. You can continue on, spread the word.
And there's so many people out there who aren't listed as curanderos or curanderas, healers of any type. They don't practice any modalities, and they're wounded. They have a lot of stuff going on in their life. And I know they're watching right now. They're the people that friends go to and talk about their problems, and they feel better afterwards. You are a healer. You are that type of person, and it's because of the things that you suffer with privately, even if you haven't addressed them, that makes you compassionate to listen to people. You know who you are. People in the family, as much as they irritate you, or as much as they turn their back on you when a crisis hits, you're the one they all come to and look for guidance. Right. And I say to you, this is a great gift. This is God showing you that you have a great compassion. Turn it on yourself. Turn that compassion inward. Right. And allow yourself to heal, and know that you're a good person, because look at the gift that you were given to help other people with their pain. Right. Help yourself with your own pain. Exactly. Live a good life. Right. You deserve it. We need more people like that. We need more. We need to have 99% of the world's population like that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you just really hit on something that I relate to, which was, I'm very much a person that, people would come to with their problems, and I guess I was giving good advice. But not until I dealt with my traumas did I really understand what I was doing. For me, it was a turning point for me was when I was 21, and I did go into therapy, and I did deal with, the things that were holding me back. And until I did that, and of course I'm still a work in progress. We all are. No, we're a masterpiece in progress. I like that's the one. Yep. I remember you said that. We're a masterpiece in progress, because, if people would realize that in themselves, that, you're never going, people who have traumas, you're always going to, that's always going to be a part of who you are. Yeah. It's going to be something that happened to you. It's called a trauma for a reason. What you're working on is how you deal with your traumas, how you, and then again, that we're going back to you. I'm not talking about you, this person, not talking about me, how I choose to deal with my traumas. What we choose to deal with our traumas is what gets better, is what we have control of. Yeah. The trauma is still always going to be there. You can't deny that something happened to you. No. Just like if you have an addiction, you're always going to be associated with your addiction. But however, it's how you choose to deal with it is what makes your life better.
That is a great, great point right there. Addiction. Because if people looked at their traumas of what happened to them with an addiction model, they would have a better grasp at it. Because what happens is when you're traumatized, or when you are addicted, it's a characteristic now that you carry. It manifests in different ways. And I know so many people who have had addictions, and they have completely turned around and found a way to handle them, going through 12-step programs. There's so many different programs to help. But trauma can be the same way. An addiction model, honestly, can fit into almost anything that you're dealing with.
Yeah.
Because it's about taking care of yourself. It's about surrendering to a higher power so that you're not doing it alone.
Yeah.
That's the big thing.
That's
You're never alone. And, and the other thing is to be therapy. Therapy is wonderful. It doesn't mean you're crazy.
No.
I mean, any therapist, any psychiatrist will tell you people who are crazy don't know they're crazy.
Yeah.
If you seek therapy, it means that you are in your full faculties and you're looking for help and you want to live a better life.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with that. And speaking to other people who share similar traumatic events helps you know you're not alone. Because when you have trauma, you think you're the only one. You're the only one who suffered like this, or you're the only one who post-traumatic syndrome reacts in this way. And when you find out you aren't, it's empowering just to be heard.
Yeah.
See, that's what I also give people is I hear them. And I say, yes, of course you should feel that way. Yes, of course. No, you're not crazy. No, you're not selfish. No, there's no shame in that.
Right.
That's what we should all do to everybody. You should never shame anybody for wanting to release what they're holding in. But the biggest problem is the shame that people who suffer trauma carry. They carry this self-shame. Right. But it was never their fault.
No.
Never.
No. And that's a good point that you made, is that, we are talking a lot about taking responsibility. And, I guess the misunderstanding about self-help is that that just because it's self means me by myself, it doesn't mean that you don't have support. It doesn't mean that you're on this journey alone. What it means is that you're just simply taking responsibility. And once you do so, of course, there's going to be some a learning curve, and that's what you have your support for. But oftentimes people feel like, this self-help movement is, I'm just doing this alone. And that's a misunderstanding about it, that it's not, the resources are there for you. The support is there for you. But you have to just know that it's your car.
It's your car.
It's your car.
You got to put the oil in,
you
got to
put it, but
gas.
You can get help with that. You can have people help you to do all those things. However, you have to be the one in control.
You're the one on top of the maintenance.
Exactly. You're responsible for the maintenance.
Yeah. How it happens, if it's a community effort, that's fine. But you're still the one that needs to say, hey,
I need my oil changed.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you're right. When we talk about, and the reason we got into trauma and things like this is because those are things that stop you from finding your spirituality. Because to find your spiritual self, you have to go inside. And what's inside is your trauma.
Yeah.
But, here's the other thing you said about self-help. There has never been a self-help book that works. Because if there had been, only one book would have ever been written.
Yeah.
But what I tell people, if you want to read self-help books, I would say stick to the self-help books that also have a workbook with them. Because just reading a self-help book without a workbook,
something that you can apply every day to your own life.
And if you find one that has a workbook, then go on Meetup, or get your friends together and get together one day and read a chapter and do the workbook and discuss it and just do that. I mean, there's a lot of ways. You don't have to find a specific group that meets at a specific place. You can create your own, where we have that ability. That's what Ernest Holmes, who I spoke about earlier, he said, ever want a religion around this. This is a philosophy. It says, I want you to get together with your friends and neighbors in your living room and just discuss these things and see how they work. So that's what you need to do. Educate yourself. You read up on trauma, read up on PTSD, read up everything. Become very well educated. The education part itself lets you know that you're normal in the way you react. And that is so powerful. And once you're armed with knowledge, seeking therapy or counseling becomes so easy because your learning curve gets a lot less. Yeah, it's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, and one of the things, and this is probably the greatest lesson that I learned from my mom is, and we're just talking in the physical world, it's like my mom taught me that you need to take care of yourself. And we're talking in the physical realm. You need to learn to cook. You need to learn to wash your clothes. Keep your house cleaned. Take care of yourself in that sense. Mm-hmm. But we don't take care of ourselves in a spiritual sense, in an energetic sense. We don't. Just like we're taking responsibility for being an adult and like washing our clothes and going shopping and adulting in the physical world, we're not adulting in the spiritual world.
No, we're not.
We're not adulting. We're not taking responsibility for our development, and we're not washing the clothes and cooking the meals spiritually. We're just doing it at a physical level, and we don't apply it spiritually in that sense. And that's kind of, for me, what I applied to my own spiritual development was like, hey, I'm over here. I was taught to wash clothes and cook and take care of myself in the physical world. Like, I need to apply these same principles spiritually.
Keep your spirit clean.
Yeah.
Keep it in order.
Keep it in order. You're responsible for it. If there's no food in the refrigerator in the spiritual realm, you got to go put food in there.
Yeah. You do.
So
whether it's getting together with a friend for lunch, whether it is going and getting a massage, whether it is taking a walk in nature, you have to feed your spiritual self. You have to set the table. Yeah. But then again, you run into the people who don't think they deserve it.
Right.
And so that's where the problem is. But everybody deserves to be happy. You have not done anything to suffer.
Yeah.
I mainly deal with people who are victims of sexual assault. Those are the people that come to speak to the curandero, or they're victims of an abusive relationship. And the first thing that we need to get past is the fact is they're not responsible. They shouldn't feel ashamed that they were stuck there, because the mind does incredibly complicated things to survive. But the thing is that once you realize that you want to move beyond it, and everybody just tells me, I just want to be happy.
Yeah.
Then things just fall into place. I always tell everybody, I'm going to walk beside you on this journey, and I'll give you perspective when I think you need it. I said, but you're going to be the teacher. You're going to be the discoverer. Yeah. And that's what happens, Yeah. I may say, oh, you're doing that thing again. Do you really want to do that again? Do you really want to go there? And they'll go, I am? Oh, no. I'm going to go this way. And it's like, oh, cool.
Yeah.
But I have no judgment. If they need to revisit something to work it out, then okay, I'm going to be here. I'll hold your space.
I'll give you a friendly
support.
Reminder. I'll give you a friendly reminder. But, old habits and old ways, they're the comfort zone.
Yes.
They're our go-to coping. They're our go-to dealings.
We all have comfort food.
Right.
We all have something that when we're really stressed out, we will eat it even if it's going to wreck our hips.
And so spiritually and exactly. So spiritually and energetically, we have those same, those same areas, those same comfort zones.
Yeah. Spiritually, they call it acting out. Emotionally acting out. Yeah. You do bad things that make you feel bad about yourself.
Yeah.
And it can be anything. Smoking that cigarette you haven't done, taking that drink, or eating, or any number of things.
Yeah. So the spiritual aspect of our development is just as important as our development as, and what do we call it? I always have a strange analogy as to like, what is this, because we have our spiritual higher self, and then we have our
Incarnate
earth.
self.
Yeah. Okay. Our incarnate self, our earth.
Yeah, earth.
bound.
Our earth body. You want
Yeah,
to call
earth.
it, I know somebody that called it a skin suit. I thought that was so funny.
Yes.
But it's this is an incarnation of our spiritual self, which is part of a higher spiritual body.
Right.
So this is a suit we picked up at Sears.
Exactly. Yeah. On sale. Actually, buy one get one free. Sometimes we got to change it out.
Yeah. Sometimes we do.
Sometimes the other one is not doing too well. But that's kind of something I wanted to talk about is the your higher self, because that's a lot. That is a term that I use a lot in my talks and in my teachings is the higher self. What would you describe as the higher self?
Okay. I'll tell you what the higher self is not. It's not the brain. It's not the analytical things. What we have been talking about, what we have been presenting in this language that we know, so that people might be able to somehow grasp an image or understanding, is the brain being used to interpret a spiritual vibration that's non-localized. We're not localized. I'm not in here. This is the brain is in here, and because my spiritual self that's everywhere and part of everything has chosen to animate through here, then it's like I'm here.
Yeah.
But so what you're hearing is the brain's interpretation of this vibration. To me, the higher self, the spiritual self, the soul, some people call it the oversoul because they split it from spiritual self to soul, but I don't believe that's true, because when you get down to the core of energy, it is spirit. It is a sentient, knowing and reacting energetic force that is throughout everything that we know and stuff that we don't know. The entire known and unknown universe, the entire matter and dark matter of the universe, way beyond the quantum level, because there's another level beyond that. But as soon as you get into the quantum level, it is sentient, it is responsive, it understands, it knows, it reacts. So the spiritual self, to me, is part of this great unified mind of love and perception.
Yeah.
That, and this has been said through many religions, God created us to know himself. Because as the God or universal energy, it has no concept of hate, no concept of fear, no concept. So, I should have asked God that when I was there, but I didn't. Because I was trying to decide if I was going to come back.
Yeah.
And
I mean, you could have stayed there just a little bit longer.
Yeah. Well, to me, it seemed like I was there for a couple of days.
Yeah.
But I wasn't gone. I wasn't gone that long. But when we get there, when we release from here, if we don't choose another vehicle, that when we release from here, that we go back to this huge entity. I don't think that we have the concept or the brain to be able to even conceive what this is.
Right.
But I think that when we go back to whatever this great pool of love is, that we won't care, because we won't remember any of this.
Exactly.
We will just already know.
Right.
But the closest you can get to it is everybody has had an experience in their life where they just know something. And it's not in their head.
No.
It's somewhere else around them and in them. It's around through.
Yeah.
Around and through.
Yeah.
And it happens, or whatever that thing you perceived comes to be, that is a pure soul experience.
Yeah.
That is what it is. And we've all had those experiences.
Absolutely. Yeah. I always, the way that you explained it is the brain. It's not a brain thought.
No.
And I often try, when I have experiences where or situations where I need a lot of clarity, or I'm really trying to understand something, I immediately, of course, have the brain thought, but I'm always trying to connect with my higher self to really get the real answer. That's what I'm always trying to connect with. I'm always trying to see things through that perspective rather than through my brain, my brain voice or my brain thought. I'm always trying to connect to that higher self. And so that, like, I like the way that you explained it, where it's a place of no judgment, pure love, pure clarity.
It's a vibrational energy.
Yeah.
And if you notice, when people talk about higher self, they always do this.
Yeah, they do.
No one points inside.
They don't.
So to think that it's localized in here is not true. And if you look at Ayurvedic drawings or you look at people that talk about auras and stuff, you see these layers of energy. You know, so that's proof that we're not localized in our body. There's Carillion photography that shows, it shows we're not localized. But what I can tell you, and you brought up a great point, is try not to use the mind. When I know it is a soul experience, it's a feeling, and I cannot describe it. There's no way to describe it. But that feeling comes in, and then my mind interprets the feeling truly so that I can act on it here. Yeah. Because it's very hard to act on a soul vibration in this plane, because this plane is more geared to this.
Exactly.
You know.
Yeah.
But it's a sensation, it's a feeling, and it's nowhere near this.
No, it's not.
You can always feel it here. Your heart is your primary brain, actually. Yeah. This thing right here is amazing. It can even have precognitive abilities. If you shut this down, you can feel what's coming from here. Yeah. You know, and as soon as you feel it here, it goes right there to get your attention.
Get your gut feeling going on. Yeah.
Because what are we all triggered to go to right away? We're all triggered when we're hungry. Oh. Yeah. So it knows how to get our attention. Oh, I'll poke them in that spot. Yeah. And it happens.
Yeah. 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 And that's the way you described it. It's undescribable. You just know. It's not, and it's not anything that you process through your rational mind. No. So that is,
and it's not irrational either.
No,
it just is.
No. Yeah.
It's the facts.
You know, I when I'm explaining the higher self to other people, I tell them, you know, you have to realize that you're kind of floating above. You know, there's this fog of the physical world, okay, and like your higher self sees everything. It looks down. It sees everything that you don't necessarily.
Quite a bit.
What?
Shakes its head quite a bit.
Yeah, it's like, okay, it's already doing things, making decisions. It's seeing what's going on over there when you're here and you're only seeing in your surrounding area. So I tell them, okay, well, what is your higher self telling you? You know, trying to tell them, like, okay, well, what's your higher self saying right now? What's your higher self see? You know, what's the feeling? Yeah, what is the feeling that you get of this, other than what you can't see beyond your own physical vision or or what your mind is telling you this is. So it's a very simple concept, but it's also very hard to grasp what the higher self is.
It's like a true spiritual experience. It cannot be described. Humans do not have the capacity to describe it. No. In the Tao Te Ching, it says the true Tao cannot be spoken, or the true way cannot be known. It has to be felt. So it's all talking about you can't do it up here. No. You have to do it in here. Right. You know, so that's the truth. Right. It's a feeling.
And you know, and accessing your higher self allows you to not be stuck in your mind and not to let your physical constraints rule your thoughts, by being able to just, even if it's just for a second, to be able to have that clarity, to be able to see things for what they are. I also call that, you know, accessing your higher self. When you have you have a really clear understanding about what you're going through or what the situation is. Because oftentimes we just get stuck at this level. We're stuck below the pollution, you know. And when we, like, I always say, look at the sky in Fresno. I'm like, they're like, oh, look at the sky. I'm like, that's not the sky. That's actually the pollution that you're seeing. You know,
it's not the sky.
It's not the sky. You know, they're like, oh my God, look at the color of the sky. I'm like, that's the color of the pollution. So I kind of use that as an example, is that,
That's a great example.
you're not really seeing the sky. You just think it's the sky because it's above you.
Mm-hmm.
But what you're really looking at is you're just looking at the pollution. And that's oftentimes what we do when we're handling traumas or we're handling stressful situations, is we're just like, well, look, it's right there.
We don't look above it.
We don't look above it. We don't look beyond it.
No.
So,
trusting what you feel has to do a lot with believing in yourself too.
mm-hmm.
And being able to quiet your mind to do it. That's why, I tell people you need to have a practice, and you have to practice it. I know so many people that will start Tai Chi because they want to practice,
Mm-hmm.
and then they don't finish, and they don't do it.
Yeah.
And they don't realize why things didn't change. Or people who meditate now and then, or people who swim now and then. Anything you do is I know you draw. Drawing is a meditative practice, but the thing is, if you're not practicing, like when you stop drawing, your little naysayers in the head start talking, don't they?
They do, yeah.
And see, that's the thing, is we think we're getting information, but we built a lot of naysayers in here. That is not the higher self.
No.
Those are the lowly trolls that we created.
Right.
And we're trolling ourselves.
Yeah.
And we need to get above them to say, oh, you're out of here.
You're out of here. You don't serve a purpose to me. You don't, you're not adding anything to me moving forward, or me, accessing, my abilities. So it's, we have to get rid of it, and we have to, I like that the trolls.
Yeah, we troll ourselves.
Yeah.
I had a friend, a massage therapist, once tell me when I was having a bad day. Yes, curanderos have bad days.
Yes, they do.
And I said something, and she said, "Hey, stop that. Stop being mean to my friend." And as soon as she said that, any time that a naysayer, or one of my little trolls up there, tries to invade my thought, I go, "Hey, stop being mean to my friend."
Yeah.
And it's really helped. I mean, something so simple as that. If you can't get to the point to say, I'm going to be nice to myself or love myself, because, honestly, we've been conditioned by society. Don't be selfish. Do for others. Don't expect anything in return.
Right.
Blah, blah, blah. And then we take that to the point where we won't even do kind things for ourselves.
Yeah. And that's a good point that you raise, is, going back to the self-help, movement, is that not only is, we talked about it, it's you're by yourself, but it can be perceived as being selfish, especially if you have kids or you have a lot going on in your life.
Oh, Lord.
It can be perceived as selfish.
Yes.
That, you're taking a moment to work on yourself. Oh, you're a bad mother. You're a bad husband. You're a bad brother. You're a bad son. What do you say about that?
Well, I'm going to address this to people who have kids. Mothers, or the mother figure within the relationship, same-sex couples, seems to take this on quite a bit, where they're now living for their kids, and then they're living for the husband entity sometimes, because, I don't know, some people don't grow up, but sometimes the husband is living for the wife because the wife doesn't grow up.
Yeah.
And he's the one that's, also living for the children.
Yeah.
And what I always say is, this is your concern. This is what you do. Oh, no, but my kids and this, my house and all that. I said, I admire anybody that raises children in a loving and concerned atmosphere. But your kids will always know, even if you don't think they know, that you're stressed, that you're burnt out, that you're sad, that you're lonely. Yeah. Because remember, they were born with the awareness we're trying to get back. They know the unspoken energy.
Exactly.
I said, and the other thing is, just keep going the way you're going, and you die. Who's going to take care of your children? You won't be there to do what you say is most important to you.
Right.
And it's not to be mean, but it's like, I see how much you love your child. do something so you're around for your grandchildren or your great grandchildren.
Right.
You know, that's so yeah, it's learning that governance that you need to have in your life, and knowing that you are worthy of having a happy life. Sure, life is not easy. It's not fair. That's not what was given to us. But we sure as hell can work around it and make it better all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But bringing up the mothers, the way that I look at it, like I completely understand, especially young mothers or young parents who, they still didn't know who they were. They were still, this kind of gotten, like it's no longer about them. The idea is that it's no longer about you once you have kids, which to a great extent that's true.
True.
Physically, like it's not about you. You have to be responsible, but my challenge to that is, and of course, full disclosure, I don't have any children myself, but what I would say is that, dealing with your traumas and developing yourself, continuing to develop yourself is, that's you're going to bring that to raising your children.
Yes.
So if you've just kind of stopped growing because you're like, oh, I got to focus on their growth, what are you bringing to the table for them? What's the message that you're, giving them? If you stop working on yourself internally, or are you up now?
I got too hot.
Yeah, we have a guest co-host here. But that's what I would say. That I would say to them, of course, respectfully, because I'm not trying
definitely.
Yeah, but I would say, if you stop working on yourself or you haven't dealt with your traumas, what kind of support are you going to be able to give your child? I had watched this a movie. I'm sure you've seen it, Joy Luck Club.
Yeah.
Well, there's a scene in the movie where she says, she had a lot of traumas that happened to her growing up, and when she gave birth to her daughter, she goes, I gave her no spirit. She goes, I brought her into this world with no spirit because she said I had none to give her. And so, I had none to give her. And that to me said, okay, that moment that her trauma emptied her to a point that she had nothing to give. She had nothing to give her daughter. And so her daughter grew up with a very weak spirit. And she put all of her anxieties and all her traumas on her daughter, therefore stunting her daughter. So that always comes to mind when I think of, if I have children, if I bring them, if I had no spirit to give them, what kind of child would I be raising? Because I have no spirit to give. So I always kind of think of it in that sense when, you have children who are raising, parents who are raising children and they haven't worked through their traumas. They haven't worked through their issues. And they're wondering why their children are acting up or doing this or doing that. And, I just kind of go back to, well, you have to work on yourself. You have to be strong in your spirit, and so that you can offer up something very impactful and something very, because like you said, children are sponges, they're absorbing, and they know. So
you teach them more by how you act and react than what you tell them. That's how, but the thing is, parents are amazing. They are heroes, parents. And there's some people with trauma that are parents that will push it aside until their children are grown, but then they fall apart.
Fall apart.
And I get to see a lot of young men and women who are parents young, and but they're out to create something better for themselves, and in that they bring their children along. And just look at the incredible benefit of these young children being able to explore different thought processes, ideas, being able to free themselves of the conventional pressures that are put on children in society to really young, before they make junior high or high school, to become more self-aware, to where the peer pressure isn't even that much, because they understand more about what it is to be a healthy human being.
Yeah.
So even then, if you think you're neglecting your children while you're doing this, your whole family can become part of the process. You can become a great example. And those of you who raise kids through your trauma, you're heroes, because it would be just hard enough to live that way, but now you've taken a responsibility of someone else, and you're doing your best. And I anybody, even foster parents, somebody who meets a young man or a young woman that needs a mother or a father because they don't have one, and you build that relationship, that you're being a hero, and you're doing your best. And and if you got stuff that you want to make sure that they don't have to deal with it. Take them along with you. Be an example. And create these powerful people to go forward, to either have their own kids or foster these poor kids, or whatever it is, or run up to some young man and say, hey, you're my brother I've always been looking for, and help them along the way, or young woman, you're my sister. That's how it works. It is truly a tribe that can raise children.
Raise children,
yeah.
Takes a village.
It does. It takes a village. But, so yeah, those are good points. And I take my hats off to anybody who is raising children, helping children, working with children, because it really takes your heart, and it really can hurt you to watch the pain and the struggles they go through.
Yeah.
And you can do your best. You educate yourself, you heal yourself, and you try to give them a great example.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Got me all emotional.
I know.
Feelings. Got me all my feelings.
Had you catching a feeling right now, Frank?
Yeah,
You overrode your You overrode your programming, huh? There for a second.
Did.
So, what do you feel personally, as you have walked these different roads spiritually? What is it that you have found in gathering all the information and the insight, looking at different aspects of spirituality, living in different aspects of spirituality and religion? What is it that you have found on your journey? What is it that you found?
Well, as I had said before, there's some people who just live being good people. They never really delve into their spirituality, and it works for them, and they're great people. It's okay. For myself, I feel everyone's vibrational emotions. There are people out there who are empaths, and I know that they struggle with it. But even you can handle it if you educate yourself. But for me, I needed to understand why I was being affected, which means I needed to understand myself. Where did I come from? What things in me were stopping me? What misbeliefs did I have about myself, about a higher power, about religion? A lot of people were hurt by religion. So I had to dispel those. And the one thing that I found that's really true in all that I've looked at is each and every one of us is worthy of being loved. And the first person that should love us is ourselves. Because, here I was dead, and God is telling me, you can come home now. And at that point, I didn't know if I truly loved myself.
Right.
But here I am. God says, come home, go to heaven. I'm going, where have I been in all this? God has loved me through everything, but I haven't loved myself.
Yeah.
So the thing I found is when most people come in, it's just about, they don't think they're a good person for some reason. But everybody's a good person. Everybody starts out a good person.
Right.
And a lot of people who seem standoffish or seem like they're hateful, it's because they were hurt and they don't want to be hurt again.
Yeah.
But when you see them and you give them an opportunity to just express this love they have for other people, then they start expressing it for themselves, and that's where it happens. That's the spirituality you're looking for.
Yeah.
You know, you can be a Christian, you can be a Buddhist, you can be a Muslim, but it boils down to love yourself, love those around you, and help, don't harm.
Help, don't harm.
That's where it comes to.
Yeah.
You know, and the most important thing is you gotta laugh at yourself. You gotta have a good sense of humor, because humans are made to be funny.
Yes.
You know, so you gotta laugh at yourself.
Some more than others.
If you fall down, you get up.
Yeah.
You know, if you've made it this far, however old you are, you're a survivor. You're not a victim. If you were victimized at the moment of victimization, you were being victimized.
Yeah.
But because you're still going, you're a survivor.
Amen.
That shows how strong you are.
Amen.
You
Amen.
bet. Take him to church.
Yep. Well, you will be taking us to church here soon once you get your, why do I keep forgetting what to call it? Ministerial
certification.
Certification. Okay.
Through Emerson Institute of Theology.
Okay. So is that kind of the, what do I want to say, the all-encompassing kind of end, not the end, but the end.
Is that the cherry?
Yeah, is that the cherry to, getting your ministerial certification, and like what's the next level?
That isn't even the first scoop of ice cream to me.
See, that's what I thought.
You know, the reason I did it was after I had my heart attack and I retired because I couldn't handle the stress of going back to where I was working. It's a very stressful job. Then I've always been doing something, you know. When you're not planning to retire and you're suddenly unemployed, you feel like you're useless and like you need to be doing something to be worthwhile. Those are, issues I've dealt with. Yeah. Now I can nap.
You can.
I don't feel I'm not worthwhile.
Yeah, I'm probably was having you here too early and messing with your nap.
But so a friend of mine said, well, why don't you just take those classes? What are you going to lose? Just time. Mm-hmm. And so I did it as a way to be around other spiritual people and a way to explore myself further. That's why I did it. My goal was never to be a minister, but my goal was to gather more tools that I could use for myself and for people that I help, which I gathered a lot of tools. Yeah. But let me tell you, doing this and exploring your faith, your spirituality, we explored our pain, we explored our trauma. I mean, this course goes deep. Yeah. Deep. We explore world religions, and I can tell you when I first got to New Thought Community, I had an issue with God, I didn't want anybody to say Jesus. I have no issue.
You have no issue with Jesus now?
He's my homie. I have no issue. I have all the hang-ups that I had about organized religion disappeared when I became one with my faith that I am not doing this alone. Yeah. And so it's, like I said, it's not even the first scoop of ice cream, because this has put me in a place where I can even go further into my own spirituality and help more people and just get rid of more pain that I have. As human beings, none of us get out of here alive. No. None of us get out of here without any pain and suffering. But if we can get rid of it while we're here, then this is heaven. Yeah. Being around like-minded people, being around Jack, talking to people like this, having this beautiful dog sitting next to me, this is heaven. Yeah. This is, so.
And most importantly, who creates that heaven?
I do.
Right.
By my thinking. Yeah. Right thinking creates the right atmosphere. Yeah. And if you're around people that ain't thinking right, go to a movie.
Right.
Leave.
Yeah.
That's just it. Surround yourself with people that want to have a happier, better life and not do it by means of artificial substances.
Yeah. And the cool thing about that is, you think about going to church and you go to this place of worship and you have people there, but they ain't necessarily the people that you chose to be around. They're not necessarily people that you want to be around. Yeah. The good thing about about having the choice to hang around and be around good people is that you choose them.
People that
You're
I
in
want to be
control.
around.
Exactly.
People that are working out their own.
Yeah.
They're working out their own stuff,
Yeah.
and no one is thinking they're better or less than anyone else. And I go to a spiritual community, New Thought community, which
Are we plugging them?
It's a church.
Are we plugging them?
Well, this is where this is all happening to me.
Yeah.
And, I have people who are Buddhist, Muslim. I have people who are Jewish, people who are Christian, people who are Catholics. And to be in a place where it's all about supporting each other and finding your own bliss, basically.
Yeah.
We'll plug Joseph Campbell here.
Yeah, there you go.
you know, but that's what it's about. So your friends should be the same thing. They should support you finding your own bliss, not finding it for you, but support you finding it. Right. We talked a lot about churches, but what I want to say is that I know so many people who their church is nature. So if you need to find your healing path and it's taking a hike, start doing it. Yeah. God's everywhere. Trust me.
He's everywhere.
He's in this microphone.
Yeah, he is.
He's everywhere.
He is, yeah. And you don't have to go to a church to find God. There's a lot of very simple principles in being spiritual that are very hard to grasp because, when you have an organized religion, you're given a roadmap. Mm-hmm. You do this, you go here, you say this, you do that. It's, but when you're kind of take your spirituality from different things, you have to start forming, forming your own idea of how to live your life. So it is very easy to just go to an organized religion because it's wrapped up in a nice package for you already.
And it could work.
It could work. Yeah, it could.
Never know till you try.
Right. So, you just, God, the higher power, the one above all, is everywhere. He's everywhere.
Everywhere.
But if you need to go to a church to find him, then so be it.
The Gospel of Thomas, turn a stone over, I am there. Split a log, I am there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey,
it's
they were onto something too, right?
Yeah, they were.
They were onto something. Hey, you know what? The thing about the Bible and these other religious teachings is that they have some really profound and wise, for me, the way that I view those, the way that I look at the Bible is I look at it as a collection of writings. Mm-hmm. I don't necessarily look at it. I never, I guess once I found my spirituality, I stopped looking at it as this is the final word. I never looked at it like that.
So we're making out on camera.
I know. It's not that kind of podcast, Frank, okay? Although there's probably people into that.
You named her Lola.
I know. Yeah, whatever Lola wants.
Whatever Lola wants, Lola gets.
Yeah.
She was a showgirl.
She's showing you something right now. So, I did study the Bible as a collection of writings. Rather than like, I got to live my life like that. This is the final word. If it's in here, this is how it is. And it, it has a lot of very profound teachings in it. So,
the problem is that you can't take it literal because they were written in parables. Mm-hmm. But if you read them and then you study, because you got to study the history, the time period, what certain things meant. And I was one I didn't want to know John this or I didn't Ecclesiastics that. But in doing world religions, as we studied the history and we studied where the root words came from and all that, my God, some of the stuff in there is like the best self-help book out there. Honestly, same thing for the Quran. Same thing. Yeah, I mean, you find in the early writings some very profound stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
You just got to decipher it all.
Exactly, and they say that the Bible is God's word. It's man's interpretation. It's several people's interpretation of God's word, or of their experience, or their experience with God,
or trying to put down their spiritual journey with God. Like I could never write down what my spiritual journey with God was really,
Right.
because my true spiritual journey cannot be put in words. It's a vibration. It's a feeling.
Yeah.
That's, it could never happen.
Yeah.
So it's their interpretation. And
Yeah.
again, as human beings, everybody has an agenda.
Exactly.
You don't write a book so it's not a bestseller.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah. And, for me, it took away the stigma of what the Bible turned into for me, because being raised religiously, the Bible was like something very condemning, something very powerful. I put a lot of power into the Bible. After awakening, I looked at the Bible and I was able to appreciate it on another level.
Yeah.
So, that's I still have respect for what the Bible, for its teachings and for what it says.
Me too.
I just don't interpret it as the final word.
Well, and the condemning parts of the Bible are so small compared to the inspirational and uplifting and just some really ordinary day-to-day advice. It's just like, okay, well, I'm glad that I took these classes and I got past that to see all of this. It's like I said, I have no problem with anybody's religion as long as it doesn't hurt you or hurt somebody else.
Yeah.
But it's still your responsibility how you use the religion you choose or the faith path that you choose. It's still your responsibility how you use it.
Yeah.
I go to the bear dance in August in Lemoore with the Tai Chi Yuktuk tribe, and a lot of people would see that.
Okay, I'm glad you said that it's not a bear dance, a different kind of dance. I'm glad that you clarified it's a Native American.
It's a Native American.
Okay,
it's a Native American dance. It's
right.
called the bear dance, and the dancers wear pelts, and it's a healing dance that's been done for forever. And a lot of people would see that as evil as this and that, but it's what you do, and these people do this dance to pull what they call the bad medicine or illness out of your body, whatever it is, whether it's emotional, spiritual, or mental.
Yeah.
And I have taken friends who've never experienced it, and I myself have had great experiences. But it's always about what do you do with whatever faith path you're following.
Right. Right. And the important thing about kind of creating your spirituality is that you don't limit it to, this is, like an organized religion where you just go to this church, you don't go anywhere else. It could, you are able to find and get in touch with God through different avenues.
Yeah.
That's for me, that's the greatest part about it, is that I can go to, to something like this Native American dance, or to sweats, or go to, some Buddhist ceremony, and just get different avenues to tap into the same thing.
Yeah. Fresno has an Interfaith Alliance, and all the churches that are part of the Interfaith Alliance, and many churches that probably are not, will welcome you to come. Mm-hmm. They're not going to say, well, are you going to stick around for the next 30 years? If not, don't come in. So you can go to these different places and you can experience different things. It doesn't mean that that's what you're stuck with. It's like saying, Jack, I'm going to take you to a buffet, but you can only have radishes.
That sounds so good right now. I'm so hungry.
We'll go to a buffet.
Yes.
But how ridiculous would it be to just limit yourself to one thing? We already know our body needs so many different things to stay healthy. It's the same with your spirit. That's
a good point. Yeah. Why are we just, I could only, get so much from the bread and the wine, right?
Yeah. Drunk and fat.
Right. That's the only thing I can get. But yeah, that's a really good point, is that, there's different aspects to our spirituality that require different needs.